Hi guys, welcome to That Lady Miss Betty. Today I have seated with me Grace Major. Grace is going to give us her story of her mother's dementia, Doretha Akins, as we continue to explore and to share and to educate and to provide awareness to our fellow community members all about the various tentacles of dementia and their impact on children who care for their parents. So we're going to start today. Grace, welcome. Thank you so much for agreeing to sit with me. If you would please just go back in your memory and talk to me about your first understanding, your first viewing, your first suspicions with respect to your mother's dementia.
Well, my mom was probably in her early 80s, and my dad had been diagnosed with colon cancer. And by this time, he was actually probably after he died, and he had been ill for about 5 years. So she had helped with his care, and he stayed at home the whole time. So she was always attending to him and his health problems. So after he passed away, she also lost a sister, I think a couple weeks after that. And so she really felt stressed and bogged down with all of the negativity at the time. So a little while, maybe a few weeks or a month or so after that, she just seemed more forgetful. Like she couldn't remember how to take her blood sugar test, or she couldn't remember what her medication was to take on a daily basis. And I remember just saying, "What do you mean you can't remember?" She seemed fine in every other way. And so I would just help her when she needed it, not really thinking too much about it. And it had probably been a few months later then the neighbors called and said that they were concerned about her, and I forget exactly what the reason was, but she didn't feel well, and so they were going to take her to the doctor for her appointment and asked that I meet him there. And so after that, the doctor just said he thought maybe she was depressed, but he wanted her to have a full checkout. So we took her to the hospital where they could do all of the tests that he felt she needed just to make sure she was physically okay. And that took several hours. And by the time we got out of there, it was late. So we decided just to bring her back to our house instead of dropping her off in the middle of the night in the country where she lived alone. But we realized after she was at our house that she really didn't seem like she would be able to be by herself. So she actually never went back home after that. She ended up staying with us from then on. But not being around her every day, it was kind of difficult to notice that, she was struggling with everyday things. Because up until then, she had taken care of my dad and his every need, and she had done a really good job. But my thought was maybe all the stress of all that care and watching him die in front of her eyes, it was too much, and the stress really did take a toll on her. That's my thought.
Absolutely. And perhaps having those responsibilities allowed her to will herself to do what, quote, had to be done. Maybe she had that amount of ability left in her. And then when that scenario was no more, she had no reason to elevate to that level of function.
Yeah, it's, I wish I understood how stress, which doesn't really seem very physical, can take such a physical toll. So it's interesting, it's hard to say, how that all happens, but it was pretty apparent to me that she was doing kind of well. Then all of a sudden, she almost like allowed herself to relax. Once she got to my house, she didn't have to, take care of herself and everything around her, and she really just sort of dropped off the cliff.
That would make sense to me. Yeah. Absolutely. So you mentioned that she was forgetting how to test her blood sugar. So your mother was diabetic?
She was, I'm not sure to what level. She took some medication. She wasn't insulin dependent.
Okay.
But she did take some medication for diabetes. And then,
was it metformin by chance?
The medication?
Metformin?
That doesn't ring a bell.
Okay.
Yeah. And I know she didn't, as long as she stayed with me, she was here like 9 years. I don't know that she continued to take anything. I'm not really sure off the top of my head.
Okay.
Because
you're not sure if she continued to take diabetic medication during the time that she was here with you?
Right.
Okay.
As we went to the doctor and thing, I don't remember. It was never really one of the issues that we
it wasn't really discussed.
Yeah. Maybe one of them was. There were a few. So
interesting. Yeah. And so then the compounding. Give me the physical picture. So was she being seen by a rheumatologist, a PC, or a general practitioner? Or?
Well, after all the tests came back that she really didn't have any physical ailments, the doctor started treating her for depression.
Okay.
And so we ended up at a psychiatrist.
Okay.
And I can't remember, timing of everything, but she did, like I said, she really did fall off a cliff. And we had her evaluated, like at an in-house psych evaluation clinic. And the diagnosis was psychotic depression.
Okay.
Because she did sort of have psychotic thoughts where she felt people were trying to harm her. She wanted to die, but she said she didn't really believe that you should harm yourself. But she did sort of have a different look, a different air about her. It did seem sort of psychotic. And so we went down that path for a long time, just dealing with all of that.
Different medications?
Different psychotic medications for depression and, all that. That was mainly what we dealt with.
Okay.
Then, I think it was just sort of slowly over time, she seemed to fit in with the household and everything seemed okay. It was more about how do you feel today, are you happy kind of thing. That it was much later, but when she would say something about maybe my husband or my son, that she didn't quite know who they were exactly. She would get them mixed up,
Yep.
And then one day she said something about, maybe a caregiver or, someone, that nice lady that, brings me food and is, do you mean me? Do you know who I am? And she didn't. So it's like, really, I mean,
but about what year would you say? How? Because you said she lived with you for 9 years.
Yeah.
What point would you say that you didn't feel like she knew who you were?
It was pretty late, I'd say. 7 years into it, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty late.
Okay. Gotcha.
But, yeah, I was just the nice lady that brought her food. But she sat and talked with me and listened and seemed like she knew me, so that's why I was a little surprised that when asked, she really didn't know who I was.
Got you. I want to drill down on the blood sugar issue. So, to understand exactly what was and what wasn't with respect to that. So, to your memory, how long prior to your mother coming to live with you was she testing her blood and taking diabetic medication?
I guess I really don't know. She took care of all that herself, and it wasn't an overbearing medical issue. So I don't really know. Maybe 5 years or so. I'm not really sure.
Because it wasn't something that was discussed.
Right. And it wasn't an issue when I lived there, growing up. So it was, later in life. So
after you were gone.
Yeah, I'm not really sure when it all started.
And was your dad on diabetic medication? Was he testing his blood?
No.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I don't know if... high blood pressure medicine.
Okay.
That was his thing.
That was his thing.
And actually, my mom had high blood pressure, too.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so she had depression, high blood pressure. And your dad had high blood pressure. Anything else for your dad?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Okay. So the doctor that she was being seen by, the general practitioner that was responsible for forwarding her to a psychiatrist, right? That was the doctor who was prescribing the blood sugar medication, her general practitioner.
Right.
Okay, so she was not under a specialist care for that particular condition.
Right.
And when you went with her for those appointments, that doctor, that general practitioner, never spoke to you about the blood sugar management?
I think he did.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, because let's see, I think I helped her test, occasionally, but it wasn't she didn't need a daily test, I don't think.
Okay. And did he give you any direction with respect to her diet?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did he give you any recommendation or offer you to attend a nutritional class where you could learn about blood sugar management?
No, I don't recall that.
Okay. All right, very good. What about your mother's pain? Was she in any pain? Did she have arthritis at all?
Maybe not really. Not like I would say I hear other people complaining about. She really, not really.
So she was not on any steroids or anything for pain?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So then, to your recollection, her only medications were for blood sugar management, for high blood pressure. Was she taking blood pressure medication? Okay. And what did that also include, like a diuretic? Mm-hmm. And she was being given how many meds for the depression?
That would vary. I would say 1 to 3, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So on a day-to-day basis, she was taking how many different meds?
She might have had 7 or 8.
7 or 8 different pills?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you recall if they were taken once or twice a day or 3 times a day?
We had, I'm kind of technical and everything, so I kind of, I had it all laid out. We had like maybe a morning and definitely a morning and an evening. And I don't remember which ones, were once a day, all that. But we might have 3 times a day. And I also helped with my mother-in-law's care. So.
And your mother-in-law also had dementia?
Yeah, she did. Yeah. So I might be getting some of that mixed up as, whose pillbox was I filling with with what when. But yeah, we had the pillboxes that kind of laid it out so you didn't, forget or mess it up.
Absolutely. And Grace, every story is different. And that's what makes stories so interesting. So with your story, at what point did your mother-in-law, Ina, develop dementia? So in other words, how many years were you sandwiched in between the care of both ladies?
I would say that she, hers was, I think, a little slower onset. I don't know that my mom's was fast either, actually. It just sort of crept up on me. But and my mom, I think, was older when I really noticed it. But my mother-in-law, she sort of noticed it herself.
Okay.
And said, I don't seem like I can remember things the same. That sort of self-recognition of it all. And that started a little early, and it seemed a lot to all of us like, just old age. We seem like we can't remember much either.
Right.
So.
And approximately how old was Ina?
Maybe.
At the point of recognition, the self-recognition that she had.
Early 80s, maybe.
Okay.
And it wasn't that bad, and she went for a while before it really seemed to get worse. But I would say that by the time my mom passed away, Ina was maybe just getting to the point where it was more noticeable and stuff. So they didn't overlap with severe cases of anything badly, because even when my mom started getting kind of bad, Ina was still able to offer help. Okay. Which was nice.
Absolutely. So the overlay, even though one was more extreme, the other one was just starting to notice but still functioning, you would say that period of time was a year, less than a year? What would you approximate?
A few years, maybe.
A few years. Okay. So more than 2.
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay. All right. The other layer I want to explore, how old was your son when your mom developed the dementia? Was he still here in the home being raised, or?
I think he was, let's see, that would have been maybe college age.
Okay.
So he was in and out.
Okay, got it.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked that because are you a part of the baby boomer generation?
Technically, I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because baby boomers, that's one of the characteristics of us, is that we have gotten sandwiched more often than previous generations in between caring for our kids. And when our kids are in college, we are still caring for them for sure. And they're coming in and out, like you say. Between caring for our kids and caring for our parents. Because more of us, a greater percentage of us in that generation, delayed having children. And one of the negative aspects of delaying having children is that this sandwiching is more likely to occur. So, for the benefit of our viewers, understanding that this is another issue that we should all be aware of and be sensitive to. That it's not like people get a break from raising their children, decompress from that, de-stress from that, and have some fun, and then parents become sick. Right. So it's lethal, and it's worthy of people being aware of. Okay. I'd like to explore whether or not there were other overlays between Ina's other conditions, such as did she have high blood pressure? Did she have high blood sugar? Were there overlays in terms of the picture, the overall health picture between your mom and your mother-in-law?
I know she took some medications, and now I can't quite remember what they were. If they were high blood pressure, I think that was it for her. High blood pressure was her main other issue.
Okay. So you don't recall her being a tester of her blood?
No.
Got it. Okay. All right. This is another point to explore because Alzheimer's has now been labeled as diabetes type 3 because the brain is being impacted by high blood sugar, which has impacted the vascular system, and the impacts of the blood. Of course, the blood is circulating all throughout our body, but it damages different parts of the body more severely for different people. So, for example, if your blood sugar is high and you get more damage in your vessels leading down to your legs and your feet, then you would be deprived of oxygen and nutrients that the blood would be carrying down to your feet and your toes. And if your blood vessel damage is more in that region, then you would be more likely to suffer neuropathy or to result in tissue that died where you would have to have amputations. Okay. For me, if my blood sugar is high and the damage is more upward toward the region of my eyes or the region of my brain, then I would be more likely to suffer diminished vision. And if I didn't control my blood sugar, if the medications, if my exercise, if my diet didn't control it, that could advance to blindness, or it could advance to dementia. So the health of the blood and understanding how to achieve the health of the blood is super duper important. But, medical science is a practice, and progress is made, and it's made slowly. And during the time of your mother and my mother suffering from dementia, this was not a part of any doctor's appointment discussion whatsoever. And so, again, it's a very important part of the story for our viewers to understand that they need to become blood sugar trackers. And I say that from a preventative measure because, again, the blood is going everywhere. And the knowledge of what is going on inside of you is a very important knowledge to take advantage of. And I say take advantage of because it's available. We can purchase blood glucose monitors in every single pharmacy that there is. However, if we're not aware that these measures are to be used not only when people have diabetes, but to prevent diabetes. That's the whole new persuasion that I'm on, because we can delay these onsets and prevent and slow down these damages that do occur through aging. I mean, the systems are not working as well. So our metabolic system is one of those systems that breaks down like every other system as we age. However, with knowledge and discipline and practice, we can slow down these breakdowns and assaults on our health. And so it's just a very important discussion to bring up as we talk today about what you knew, what you didn't know, what your experience was as a daughter and a caregiver in recognizing these facets. Is there anything else that comes to mind that you feel was unique in your mother's expose of dementia?
I don't know. It's just so hard to tell, when you try to look around and recognize a pattern, is it something that we're doing, that's making this disease happen to one person and not another person? I wonder sometimes if it's, if it's not a diet, that a particular family is used to. Do you eat out a lot? Do you cook home a lot? Do you buy a lot of processed foods, that are pushed, everywhere you turn? I think in general, I think she ate really well. I think she cooked, spent a lot of time cooking food and from scratch, not a lot of additives and things. But so I think even though, she did end up with, a dementia of some sort, she was quite elderly. I did have another friend that had a dementia-like symptoms and things way earlier than that. So in some regard, maybe, she was able to, hold it off a little bit because of what she did do. And, by the time you get to 90 plus, she was 92 when she passed. I remember in her late 80s, and a lot of people couldn't believe she was that old. She looked pretty good. She was struggling a little bit mentally. And at that point, I wouldn't have called it the dementia piece. I would have said it was more the depression piece. She didn't do too badly. So I do think, like you said, that how you live your life, and we don't necessarily know what it is exactly, but I think food has a lot to do with it.
Food has a lot to do with it, absolutely. Because if you compare us to like a car, for example, right, and it comes with a manual as to how to take care of the car, what type of oil to put in it, what type of gas to put in it. And so if we put the right inputs into the car lasts longer. If we put a stick of butter into the gas tank, the car is not going to run, right? The human body really is adaptable, and it really does a great job of running off of the wrong inputs.
Right, it does.
Nonetheless, there is the right inputs, the optimum inputs, the terrible inputs, and as you mentioned, the most terrible inputs are the man-made foods and drinks. And those foods are the most profitable foods in our capitalistic society. So those are the foods that are pushed in a variety of different ways. One of the ways that they're pushed is even in recipes. So if you come up with a vegetable oil and you come up with boxed cake mix, and now the boxed cake mix says to put in a half cup of oil rather than butter. Now that boxed cake mix is selling to ultra processed foods, right? And it becomes a part of the lexicon that we make these homemade these cakes. They're not from scratch, but anything that's marketed as being more convenient, faster, is always going to be the gateway to sabotaging your health, and then making you a customer of the healthcare system by developing in you a chronic illness as opposed to acute illnesses such as infections, which we have a really high cure rate for through antibiotics. But with chronic illness, that is a huge moneymaker for the capitalistic society, both on the front end and the back end. And so that is a big part of the problem. And you can see it when you look at time stamping or sociology. So for example, in the 60s, only 5% of the population was obese. By the 80s, 16% were obese. Now I hear anywhere from 40 to 70% obesity. So when you look at, well, what happened to the inputs from the 60s through now the 20th century, and when you look at the change in our direction, we were directed away from butter to liquid oils and to margarines, non-animal products. We were directed to low fat, which then increased the sugar in order to make those products more acceptable to the palate. Because the things that give flavor are fat and sugar. So as we went up in the consumption of sugar, our blood sugar went up. But rather than pointing the finger at processed carbs nearly enough, more people got taught to focus on sodium and to focus on fat. Sodium is a needed mineral, as evidenced even by if you are admitted into the hospital, one of the first things that they're going to hang is a sodium chloride bag, because sodium and chloride both make you feel better. But the system demonized salt and it demonized fat. And when it did that, if you look at the trajectory of our health outcomes, they went up. The top killers are heart disease then, and it's still heart disease now. Second is cancer, then neurodegenerative diseases. Diabetes makes you twice as likely to develop heart disease, cancer, and neurodegenerative diseases. So we've been misdirected from the standpoint of our health, but we've been appropriately directed toward the direction of the capitalistic economic wheels. Addiction is a part of that. Processed foods are addicting, and the manufacturers and the people who puppet the system, they know that. So if we can direct the masses onto the processed carbs, they're going to be addicted, and we're going to make money hand over fist through the grocery store buying, the restaurants, all of it. And we're going to make them more lazy. We're going to say, you don't have time to cook? Let us cook for you. So we're going to pick up all of these things, consume them, and they are low quality in terms of nutrition, and they're detrimental. So then that feeds you into the healthcare economic wheel system. So the discussion of dementia is very important and very enlightening when you dissect it to understand it from a sociology standpoint, from a generational standpoint, from the realities of the health report card that we're dealing with, and why is that report card looking that way. So I want to thank you, Grace, for sitting here with me to share your story, your dissection, your understanding, your remembrances for the benefit of my viewers who are interested in understanding dementia for the purpose of preventing it and for the purpose of gaining strength if they are in fact in a position where they are caring for loved ones or they see it on the horizon. So I would like to leave the viewers with this point, and that is learn about blood health. Learn about tracking your blood. Learn about how to steer your blood into the optimum range of 70 to 85. That is the lower end of normal. When you keep your blood on the lower end of normal, you will be optimizing your overall health picture. So Grace, I want to thank you for sitting with me. To the viewers, I thank you for listening, and I ask you to please like, comment, share, and subscribe that lady, Miss Betty. Bye now. Bye, Grace.
Bye-bye.